I was listening to Stephanie Harlow this morning talking about the Ruby and Jody case, Ruby, Frankie, Jody, Hildebrandt case of child abuse regarding the Church of Latter-day Saints teachings, etc., and some of the things that were practiced. This is not, here's a disclaimer. This is not in any way, shape, or form throwing shade on every single person that is a Latter day Saint. I don't agree with your beliefs if you are, but this doesn't mean I hate you if you are. I will pray for you if you are, because there's an awful lot of very dangerous things that you believe in practice, some of you. Hi, Weetsy Bat. I just want to talk about and tell my story again of when I was with the narcissist years ago. The thing that got me this channel, basically. Um, I'm trying to think of maybe a pseudonym I can give the person because um, we're just going to call her, we'll call her Charlie, okay? We'll call her Charlie. Because I basically don't want anybody to know I'm talking about her because she has changed from what I know and isn't this way anymore. At least I hope not. But then again, the people she ended up with, I'm not really sure where they're at spiritually either. So I'm going to assume everybody's okay, and we'll just go with that and leave it at that. Because this is my story that I went through years ago, and actually Charlie gave me permission to tell this story. I've named her other things in the past, but frankly, I don't remember what names I gave her. I think at one point I gave this one friend I had the name Dove, which is where my story starts, is after splitting my friendship off with Dove, I met Charlie. Or, well, kind of around the same time, actually. Anyway, this was on a different forum. It was not YouTube. It was a totally different forum. I've mentioned it before. Some people might know where it was, but that's okay. That's not significant in the story. All right, so I had just come out of a rather long relationship with a lady that had borderline personality disorder. And yes, it was diagnosed. I always call her Dove. We call her Dove. It was diagnosed that she was borderline. She also had kind of like a muscular dystrophy-ish type of disorder that made her body contort and do all kinds of painful things, sadly. I've heard not all that long ago that she's doing much better, so that's good. I don't wish pain on anybody. But we did not last in our relationship because I had visited Dove in person and watched how she basically was a control freak of everyone around her, her children, their friends, sports games. I mean, she had to control everything or she just didn't feel secure. That's also part of borderline personality disorder, I think, is that feeling of, being out of control if you don't control everything. Anyway, around this time after I split with Dove, who I was with for like a good couple to 3 years, I think, as a friend online, and then met her in person and stayed with her for like a couple weeks. With, I believe it was Randy and Amber at the time. They were very little. Amber was a baby. She was probably maybe about 2 years old. And even then, Dove had to control everything. She told me she would teach me how to get my child to be disciplined, like while you're training horses, because Dove owned horses at one point. So she told me how to click at my daughter. And if my daughter touched something she shouldn't, I should go, and click. Like you would train a horse. Anyway, that's apparently how she raised her children. So, I don't know. Anyhow, one thing about codependence, which I definitely was back then, is that we have a need to be needed, but we also have a need to be accepted. So we tend to do whatever the abuser wants us to do, and we see it as if they're doing it for our own good. They have our interests at heart and in mind, basically. By the way, I'm sorry if I'm pulling any of you away from the eclipse right now. I'm pretty sure I already saw part of it. I made myself a little eclipse viewer type thing. I saw some kind of shadow over the sun when I looked through it. So I'm good. I'll watch the rest on the news later on the Weather Channel or something. Um, anyway, so Dove and I split, and at one point Dove's husband called me up and said, "You're not a really good friend. Why would you turn on your friend, just over whatever? And it wasn't that I had turned on her, I had asked people to pray for her because when I went and met her in person, she was very controlling. And I told people she really needs help because she is very insecure, very controlling. And it got back to her instead of them praying. Well, I don't know if they prayed or not, but they went right back to her, ran back to it, and said to her and said, "Your best friend Dee, which that wasn't my name, obviously, she was saying all this stuff about you." Sorry about that, my alarm. She was saying all this stuff about you, and we don't know what's going on. And so I don't remember if she came to me or just cut me off. Knowing her, probably just cut me off, and I was devastated. I do remember at one point calling her at least 8 times in a row, crying on the phone, saying, "Please, please, Dove, just talk to me. We can work this out." Because I was so clingy, so dependent, so leechy back then. I'm embarrassed to even say it, but that was who I was. I was a very insecure person in a very bad marriage and just really lonely for friends. And I thought she was my truest friend I had ever met. It was really a codependent relationship, and it was the dance of codependency where we kind of fed off of each other. She had a need to be needed, I had a need to be needed, and we both had a need to be accepted. And neither one of us was non toxic or healthy for each other or anybody else at that point. That's the truth. Anyway, so we split, cut ties, and along comes Charlie. Now, this is how I met Charlie. A lady came to me that we were mutual friends with. We had been doing online Bible studies. I've told this story before, so if it's redundant, I'm sorry. I'm telling it again because I see such relation with the whole Jodi Ruby, especially Jodi situation and scenario. How she controlled Ruby, how she controls a lot of people and controlled a lot of people. So I'm like, I've got to get on there and tell my story. I've got to tell the similarities of what I went through versus what this Jodi lady's been doing to people all along. Because I understand. Because Charlie was my Jodi. That's why I'm telling this story. Anyway, so this mutual friend of ours came. Basically, Charlie at the time had been kind of in a group with us, Bible study people. We were studying the Bible together and sharing our insights. It was really a good study. Well, she had some really good insights, and people noticed it, and they're like, "Well, hey, why don't you kind of lead sometimes? Why don't you read the Bible and pray?" And I remember her being very reluctant, saying how she didn't like leading anything. She would rather just stay in the background. She never told us anything about herself at first. Like, we didn't know if she had kids. We didn't know if she was married. We just knew her name, Charlie, pseudonym. And we were very intrigued by this lady because there was something about her. I can't explain it. There was some spiritual thing about her that just drew us all to her, and many other people too at the time. Anyway, she became friends with this lady that was in the group also. And this lady came to me one day and said, "Hey, Charlie wants to take you under her wing. She knows that, you've been hurting over Dove's, friendship, breaking up with you and whatever, ending. She wants to take you under her wing and kind of mentor you." I'm like, "Me?" I mean, it was like the last thing on my mind. I didn't even think of her wanting to do that. I think at that time I had started hanging out with Charlie, and we would do like voice impersonations of Disney characters and whatever. We would do it like over the phone and stuff, just kind of get each other giggling. I don't think we ever camera chatted at that point. It was just phone stuff. But we would, or like online audio type things. We would take turns. She'd do one impersonation. I'd do Mickey Mouse, whatever. And we had a good time. We'd stay up till 3 in the morning sometimes doing this. And yes, I was a married woman with kids in a miserable marriage, trying to escape a miserable marriage and make sense of it all. And I didn't handle it right. And I should have never gotten addicted to the computer or the online stuff. But I did. I became very much social media addicted for sure, and addicted to this forum in particular. So Charlie and I would get together and do all these impersonations. And when her friend came to me and told me, "Oh, she wants to take you under her wing," she's like, "Just go ask her. Go ask her. Don't believe me. Just go and ask her." So I got a hold of her when we were doing our little impersonation. I said, "I got a question for you." She goes, "Yeah." They actually said, "Yeah, girly." I'm going to try to impersonate her voice because she was this very cutesy, innocent seeming type person. She's like, "What's up?" I said, "Well, what's up is so and so told me that you want to mentor me and take me under your wing." She's like, "She did?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, and she's like acting like she didn't know what I was talking about, like it wasn't true. I said, "Well, is that the case or not? Did you want to mentor me? Because, yeah, I guess I could kind of use a friend right now. I'm really hurting over the breakup with Dove. We've been together for like several years." And she eventually said something like, "Yeah, yeah." She goes, "I always kind of wanted to, be the one to mentor you, to guide you, to be your spiritual mom, basically." I said, "Oh, I'm not sure exactly what that entails. I'm not sure how I feel about it because Dove and I were like really close. I'm not sure I can open my heart again like that because I got really hurt." She's like, "Well, it's up to you. I'm not going to force you. I'll wait for you to come to me. I'm not going to chase after you." Okay. So you go think about it and you let me know what you think. Go think about it and go ask the ghost. She called the Holy Spirit the ghost. Go ask the ghost what what he wants you to do. All right, fine. Okay, so I guess we must have done more impersonations and I went off on my merry way and it was probably nighttime, so or early morning, and we both got offline and I prayed and I felt like, yeah, I'm feeling a go ahead in my spirit. I should give her a chance. I don't really know how it'll turn out, but it's worth a try. And I'm lonely and I'm miserable without my friend Dove. And yeah, let's give Charlie a chance. So I went back to her like probably a couple days later or maybe the same day. I don't know. And I said, "Okay, Charlie, I prayed about it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go forward." She goes, "Oh, that's perfect. Okay, my dad's a pastor. I've got a bunch of papers I can send to you." I still have the papers. I still do. Um, and it's basically a Bible study, and it'll just kind of teach you the basics, kind of like we do with our church. And if you have any questions, let me know. And I didn't really have any questions. It was very basic stuff about believing in Jesus, believing he died for you, that kind of stuff. Reading your Bible, going to church, that sort of thing. So I basically, what? Turtles? I'm not sure what you're asking about turtles for. Oh, in the background. I'm sorry. Yes, sea turtles. Yes, those are puzzles I've done. Bunch of different ones on my wall. Anyway, yeah. I'll show you my puzzles on a slide video that I do later, okay? I'll make it on TikTok and I'll upload it because I need to update my puzzle postings anyway. All right, I do digress about the turtle puzzle. Okay, so anyhow, we became closer and closer as time went on, and I really wanted to meet her, like in person. I felt like she's my bestie, my BFF. Um, this live is about my experience with a narcissist in the past as compared to Jodi Hildebrandt in the true crime case of Jodi and Ruby. So, I need to maintain my focus here, people. So, if I don't answer your question right away, that's why I'm trying to focus. And I'm a little ADD, so my brain has trouble switching back and forth. All right. So we became closer and we did Bible study together and it went really well. And I was excited about meeting her at some point. And it was kind of like this thing where, wow, if I could just meet her, we can go on a mission trip to another country because she had gone on mission trips before. She had talked to me about maybe joining her at some point. I was scared. I didn't want to fly on a plane, but I just really came to the point where I didn't care because I was with Charlie, so I would feel totally safe, amazingly. Anyway, nothing happened at first. It went on for like several months, and then at some point, another lady came into the picture. I have no trouble naming her. Her name is Karen. I don't like her. I probably never will like her. She was very demon possessed and evil and wicked and probably could be one of these Jodi Hildebrandt types for all I know. I don't know. I didn't keep in touch with her. Wouldn't want to. She gave me the heebie-jeebies. Okay. Anyhow, so Karen comes along and Karen has demon possession, oppression, whatever you want to call it. She had devils. Okay. We decided at one point that I had earned the right to meet Charlie in person. So we drove to another state. My daughter actually drove me, and then I met Charlie's parents, and they drove me the rest of the way, I believe. Or actually, no, I met Charlie, and she drove me the rest of the way this time. Gave me a cigarette at some point because I had smoked in the past, and she was smoking. She's like, "You want to drag?" And yeah, you go along with things when peer pressure, and no matter how old you are. I was in my 30s at this time, by the way, y'all. I'm in my 50s now, but I was in my 30s. Um, yeah, I should have known better. Never had met a narcissist that I knew was a narcissist. Didn't even know what the word meant. All I knew was I was drawn to this person, and she seemed to have this in with the Holy Spirit that I wanted. So we went to this other state. We got a cabin, and along comes Karen with us because we decided we would form this little trio thing, whatever. And Charlie and I were there first. Karen wasn't there yet. Charlie and I were just hanging out, talking, chatting, just superficial, everyday stuff. Shooting the whatever they call it. But I won't say that word. Just passing the time. We're just chatting and we're getting along fine. Everything's cool. She seems just like she is online. And Karen arrives. Karen arrives at the door. Hi, Purple. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I knew you'd come along eventually if you weren't already here. Karen comes in with her hair literally hanging over her face, like Cousin It. In fact, we kind of joked later and called her Cousin It, I'm pretty sure. But she was snarling and she was growling and kind of foaming at the mouth, probably. I don't remember exactly, but it was pretty creepy. And Charlie needed to pray for her, we decided. And I was praying at first, too. I don't know if I was laying hands on her or just standing back and putting my hand out to her. And she was casting demons out of her and binding them and whatever. And whether you believe in that or not, I do. And I felt that, it worked. Charlie got calmed down and everything was fine. But then at one point, Charlie's like bawling or not Charlie, I'm sorry, Karen was bawling and snarling and whatever. All that other stuff was Karen. Charlie was praying over her, just so I don't get confused. So Karen fell into Charlie's arms and Charlie's hugging her and holding her. And then she's like, "I'll be right back, girlie." And she got up and she's like, "Girl, come with me." So we went out onto the deck of the cabin and she's like, "Girl, is this what she was doing when she came to your house that one time?" I forgot to tell you, Karen had been to my house. I actually prayed over her at my house. That was quite a thing. She literally slithered across the floor and grabbed my ankle. And I started just binding and rebuking whatever demons were on her. And I felt like she was free of them. But she wasn't, because apparently her mother was really into some demonic stuff. And they just were allowed to be there. That's what I was told anyway. Okay, well, anyhow. Yes, I told her that. "Charlie, that is exactly how Karen was acting at my house. And that's why I prayed over her." And she's like, "Ooh, girl, I don't know how to handle this." I said, "Charlie, your dad's a pastor. You've told me you've prayed over people for deliverance before. What do you mean?" She's like, "You need to get in there and do something. I don't know how to handle this." So I went in there, but I didn't know what to do either. So I just said, "Look, you're the minister. Do whatever God tells you to do, what the ghost tells you to do." So I think she just ended up holding Karen the rest of the time, kind of praying over her while Karen had her little meltdown or whatever. And I started feeling like, hey, I feel like I'm being left out here. I didn't say anything, but I was feeling it. So I finally wrote her. Oh, wait, no, something else happened first. Um, Nighttime came. We had some dinner, whatever. We got in a hot tub. Um, Obviously clothed, so don't let anybody's mind go any weird places. It wasn't like that. It was a cabin hot tub. She was on one side of the hot tub. I was on the other. There was nothing weird going on because it would be gross if there was. Anyway, we're just chilling in the hot tub. Then we get out of the hot tub. And then we go and we sit in the one part of the cabin. And Charlie comes in and she's like, I don't know, she changed personality. That's the best way I could explain it. She had an accent, like a southern accent, and anytime she would minister, this southern accent would come on. Like she was somebody from TBN University or whatever it's called, TBN show, Trinity Broadcasting Network. So she'd be like, "Okay, y'all, we're going to do a little exercise that the ghost gave me. Okay. She's like, he's the ghostest with the mostest. Some kind of bull, whatever. And we're like, okay. She's like, well, you know the story of the alabaster box and the woman that broke the alabaster box over Jesus' feet. We're like, yeah. She's, well, if you were that woman, what would you break over the Lord's feet? Now, I had already prayed myself up before taking this trip, so I felt like I was good with Jesus. I didn't think I needed to break any alabaster box over his feet. I didn't have any need to confess any sins or whatever. I was cool. But Karen, of course, had all these problems with her mom and had to confess that to Charlie and to God. And so Charlie came and laid hands on her and she felt the Holy Spirit and whatever. And she came over to me. She's like, what about you, girlie? What would you do? I'm like, I'm good. I prayed already. I'm good. I was good when I came here. She's like, fine. Then go to your room. I'm like, huh? You heard me. Go to your room. I was alone with these two crazy women, out in the middle of Nowhereville, another state. Did not know what to do, so I got up and I hightailed it out over to the bedroom and stood there going, what the just happened here? Did this grown woman just tell another grown woman to go to her room? Yes, she did. And because I was so darn codependent and dependent and whatever else my issues were, I went to my room because rather than rile her feathers and see that ugly side of her again, I complied. So I went to my room, the cabin room, obviously, laid there in the bed and did not come out till the next morning. The next morning, Charlie was a different person. Hey, girlie, I made some pancakes. There's some strawberries, blah, blah, blah. What do you want on your pancakes? Oh, huh? I wanted to say, do you not remember what happened last night? Are we not going to talk about that? No. We definitely were not going to talk about that. And we didn't talk about that. Yeah. Oh, Purple, you might not have heard my story. This was years ago. I told this when I first got this channel. Because the reason for this channel was that I had been on that other forum, and I told everybody everything that Charlie had done to me and put me through and her whole family and whatever. And she found out. She told her husband. He called me. She called me back. He basically warned me. He said, I know where you are. I can make life miserable for you. I can take you to court, blah, 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 if you're talking about us. And we're a ministry family. I told you when you came, you know, what goes on here stays here. This was after I had been to their house. That's a later story, but I'm kind of forwarding and backwarding. Anyway, so then she called me and said, girlie, all I want to ask you is one question. Did the Holy Ghost tell you to open that chat room? And I'm like, well, she goes, you don't have to answer me. Just think about it. And if he didn't, then you know what you need to do. And then she hung up. So at that point, I closed down the chat room, but I still felt I had a story to tell after all this stuff I'm about to tell you. So that's when I started my YouTube channel. I made one video talking about what I had gone through and later on found out through Sam Vaknin's teachings and one other lady that had a channel that I don't think she has anymore on borderline personality disorder, that basically I had been narcissistically abused by a pastor's daughter and part of the family. All right, now let's go back to our story. So I wrote her a letter at this point after breakfast that basically said, if you guys know the story in the Bible about, I think it was Jesus with the Israelites or the Hebrews or I don't know, something, the chosen people, and I don't remember the exact story, but they didn't associate with, I think it was a Samaritan woman or something. And she said, well, or they said, we don't throw bread to the dogs. And she said, well, even the dogs can eat the crumbs. So I decided with Charlie to use that tactic. I wrote her a letter and I said, I know you were upset with me over not doing the whole alabaster box thing, but I literally had, cleaned the slate with Jesus before I came. And so I didn't really have anything for you to pray about. But I know you prayed over Karen, But even the dogs get the crumbs. Don't I get anything from the Holy Spirit? Like, I wanted her to pray over me. I wanted ministry. I wanted help in my marriage because my marriage was in shambles at that point. So she ignored me pretty much the whole rest of the day till I finally cornered her and said, Charlie, did you get my letter? Yeah, I got it. And what do you want me to say? I want an answer. I mean, did you read it? Yeah, I read it. Do you know the Bible story I'm talking about? Yeah, girlie, of course. So she's like, well, I can't just conjure up the ghost. He was here. He comes when he wants. I can't just conjure him up for you. You missed him. So I'm thinking, oh, okay. Well, eventually we went on a canoe trip, and that was an utter disaster with the canoe capsizing twice and me acting like the little kid in the middle holding the picnic basket for dear life because I was terrified with these crazy women steering the canoe. And when I dropped the lunch into the water and I'm bonked on the head by the canoe and pinned under it, I could hear Charlie screaming, "Save the lunch, girlie. Don't worry about yourself. Save our lunch." I was like, good God. I knew I was with two crazy people, people that were very unstable, but I had no way home. Remember, she drove me there. So she had to get me out of there. When it was time to leave, I didn't take my car. I was trapped, very much trapped. Anyway, I kind of bided my time the whole rest of the time, and it was relatively pretty mild. Nothing much, I don't think, happened after that capsized canoe trip thing. And then, the one morning, she said, "Hey, girl, I was thinking of what you said." Oh, that's okay, Purple. I don't care. You can laugh. It happened so long ago that, it's fresh in my mind and always will be because my story helps other people to know they're not crazy and that nutty stuff happens with these crazy narcissist people. At one point, she said, I was thinking of the letter you wrote me, and yes, you're right. Even the dogs get the crumbs. So if you want to meet with the ghost, he said he's down the hill at the picnic table. And if you go there, he wants to surprise you. Okay. Oh yeah, well the image was very funny, like on a Three Stooges movie. It was very funny and very bewildering on the day it happened even. A lot of times I didn't know whether to laugh or get scared because my emotions were like really all over the place. I never met anybody like these two. Well, till years later on YouTube when I did. We won't get into that. Anyhow, thankfully I didn't meet those people in person. That was a good thing. So we're gonna the ghost, not God, the ghost. They were apparently two very different people. God was different. The ghost was a separate entity altogether. The ghost was going to meet me down at the picnic table and surprise me. I said, "What do you mean surprise me?" She goes, "Just go down there. The ghost wants to surprise you. He wants to talk to you or something. I don't know. He didn't tell me." I'm like, alrighty then. So I'm going to call her bluff. I'm going to skip down the hill to the picnic table. And I'm like, "Are you coming?" She's like, "Oh, no, just you, just you. He wants just you." Alrighty then. So I go down there to meet the ghost, and I hear a voice saying, "Be careful. I am going to work through you in this situation. You're going to call her out on things nobody has dared to call her out on. And you're not going to be liked. You're going to be despised. And it's going to get very bad for you. So just be careful and be aware that I am with you through everything." Okay. Alrighty then. I walked up the hill. She goes, "Well, girlie, did he talk to you?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "What did he say?" And I made up something. I didn't tell her what I heard, obviously, because I was scared of this chick. So I didn't tell her anything. And I didn't know the timetable of when God was going to use me to bring conviction on her and to confront her, which is indeed what ended up happening later on. Not at this trip, but it happened, and we'll get to that soon. Anyway, so I went up the hill, told her, yeah, whatever. I told her some kind of cockamamie story I made up. I don't know. Because I wasn't going to tell her what I heard. Because I knew God does talk to me, and He did warn me, and He gave me the heads up on my future before I even got to it. And it played out exactly like He said. All right, so anyway, it was time to go. We drove home. Um, and a lot of stuff happened like online where we had like little Bible studies and deliverance services and whatever. And it was kind of mild and, nothing super weird out of the ordinary for a while. Um, then one day it was close to my birthday. In fact, it might have been my birthday. And she sent me this card that said something about how God had sent down from above someone for her to love. I just remember that rhyme in the card. I don't remember the whole card. And it said in the on either the bottom or the side of it, "Congratulations, girlie. You have earned the right to come and spend some time with me at my trailer." Now, she told me before that very few people ever got to see her in her trailer because it was just too vulnerable a thing for her. And they were a ministry family, so they were very protective. Okay. So to see her in her trailer was, I don't know, like going to see somebody and hang out with Joyce Meyer. Or I'm trying to think of an evangelist everybody might know. That's a common evangelist. I guess that's as common as I can get. So it was like this big privilege. Woohoo! I'm getting to go see, this Joyce Meyer-ish kind of character and get to see how she lives and meet her kids and meet her husband and everything. There was more that happened in between that. She had gone to Africa. I was her armor bearer. I saw visions of somebody trying to kill her. That was all true. People were. And yeah, so anyway, we won't get into that digression because she was already back from Africa at this point. So it's time to go out to see her at her trailer and spend a couple weeks with her, like 2.5 weeks maybe. Well, what I didn't tell you was all along online when we would talk, she would tell me about how her daughter would have slumber parties, her stepdaughter and daughter would have slumber parties with their friends, and she would buy them everything they wanted. Because Charlie's husband was in a very lucrative business and he had lots of money. So she would just let the girls loose in the store and say, "Go ahead and buy yourself whatever you want." She sent me a couple gifts too along the way. She sent me an artifact back from Africa, which I probably don't have anywhere anymore, I don't think. There's probably something pretty chintzy for all I can remember, but I don't have it at any rate. But it was a love bombing thing, and it was very mild love bombing at that point. So she had told me how she would buy all these things for her daughter and her stepdaughter and their friends and stuff and just let them, loose to do whatever they wanted to do. And she said, "When you come and see me, we're going to have a girly day. We're going to get our nails did and our hair did and our makeup." And mind you, this is a 30-something-year-old lady that was acting like a teenager and sounded like one. She would switch personalities. So this was the teeny bopper Charlie, as I called her. Anyway, and when she would get in that mode, she would literally put her hair up like this in a high ponytail so it bebopped around while she would walk or drive her Jeep or whatever. It was a literal Jeep, not like my Jeep. This was like a little truck type Jeep, like a little Jeep. Yeah. And she would just bop down the road with her pigtail waving. Weirdest thing I've ever seen. Anyway, so the first thing she did was, well, first of all, I had to get there. So my daughter and her boyfriend at the time drove me part of the way, and Charlie's parents picked me up at a restaurant. We had lunch, and then we carried on to the state she lived in. And all during the whole entire trip, Charlie was basically calling on the phone, texting, saying, "Oh, I can't wait. How long till you guys get here? Are you almost here? I can't wait. We're going to have such a good time. I can't wait for my kids to meet her. I can't wait to give her a hug in person." All this, love bombing over the text message, love bombing over the phone, I guess you'd call it. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to have a really good time. I can't wait to meet her. I care about her so much. She's such a good friend. We were like besties, like really, really close besties, joined at the hip type people. So I thought. Anyway, and maybe we were and it just ended badly, but you can decide for yourself. I already know what I decided. So I get to the trailer and her parents walk in the door. I think maybe they took my luggage, some of it. I had like bags and a suitcase. And then I remember I had the suitcase in my hand. I walked into the trailer. Charlie looks up at me. How was your trip? It was okay. Oh, good. Continued to talk to her mother the whole rest of the time as if I wasn't even there. Literally. For hours on end. Hours. I remember laying on the couch like it was yesterday with a paper balloon that her son had made and literally tossing the paper balloon back and forth for hours. The sun went down. It was dark out. Eventually, I think we got up to use the restroom and go to bed or something. Charlie ignored me. There was no hug, no excitement. Oh, you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Nothing. It was the weirdest thing. So I'm thinking, I've never been to this house. Maybe this is just, they're not very demonstrative people. You know, I grew up with a very huggy, kissy, touchy Italian family. So I wasn't used to not being greeted with a hug when somebody was all excited the whole trip there to see me. But no, there was no hug at all. There was hardly any talk at all. Her mom said, well, I'll see you girls in the morning. We're probably going to come over tomorrow night or something. Oh, dual? No, not dual. Multiple. Many. At least 5, I would say. 4 or 5 probably personalities. Creepiest thing I've ever experienced. Anyway, so I said, well, I'm not going to go to bed and, I'm not going to think anything of it. So I went to bed, woke up the next day. I think maybe her parents had gone out of town at that point, so things had changed. We didn't end up seeing them yet. We were going to go to like a Bible study at her church. Her dad was a pastor of a church. So was her mom. So was she. We didn't end up going, and I was very visibly disappointed, and she could tell. I don't think she said anything to me that time, but she did eventually. So I went to bed. I woke up, and I'm like, so what are we doing today? She goes, I don't know. I said, okay. She's like, I thought we'd go get some movies. Okay. We go get the movie Monster and Taking Lives. Those of you that follow horror movies, slasher films, and all those things know what those movies are about. You know exactly what goes on in those movies. Everything from alternative lifestyle and mayhem on both of those movies. I was literally, when we were watching the movies, because she did turn them on at some point, I was cringing. I was like this in the corner of the couch, trying to plug my ear with one hand, keep my ear on the couch with the other part of my head, and cringing my shoulders up because it was so, and she had it loud, very loud, and you could hear all the screams and the gushes, and it was gross. I hate horror movies. Hate them. Wish there was a law against them and that you could be arrested for making them. That's how much I hate them. So she looks over at me and she's like, what's the matter, girlie? I said, this is gross. I don't watch this stuff. She goes, haha, you think that's bad? I'm like, yeah, I do. She's like, haha, it really bothers you, huh? Yes, it does. She's like, okay, let's go shopping. And then she turned back into the little teeny bopper with the ponytail after she was like kind of calmed down from enjoying her horror, I guess. We get in the Jeep. We drive off. Her hair's bopping in the wind, swinging back and forth. Got her, convertible thing down, I think, whatever. She says, I told you I'd buy you stuff, so what do you want? And I'm like, I'm not sure. She's like, well, you can have anything you want. And everything I would pick up, she would find something wrong with. She didn't always say anything, but you could kind of feel her seething about it. Like it just, no, that isn't something she would want me to get. So I was very picky about what I chose, and I kind of inched my way around figuring out what she would want me to pick out. And I picked it out. And then I guess we left at some point. Went back home. Finished watching the horror movies. Well, on the monster one, apparently Charlie had some attacks in her past by people of the same gender, I'm guessing. Because when that part came on, she said, oh, I can't watch it, and went into the kitchen, tell me when it's over. So I had to watch it to tell her when it was over. No, I didn't have to. When I say I had to I felt I had to because I was codependent and dependent on this woman. So I did her bidding, basically. So I told her, okay, it's over. You can come back in now. And we finished watching. Then we watched the Taking Lives one, and it was horrible. So finally, it was bedtime. We went to bed. Next day, her mom and dad came over, I believe, is what happened next. I'm trying to look at my notes here so I don't miss anything. Oh, yeah. Had already been introduced to her two kids, a girl and a boy, who owned zero toys whatsoever. She didn't allow them to have toys so they could focus on more important things like school and I guess their relationship with the ghost because she Bible studied them to death every Sunday or Saturday or whatever it was. Yeah. So there were no toys allowed. There were no toys in their room. I remember I brought the daughter and the son gifts and they were very appreciative, but they were very careful about how appreciative they were because they didn't want to make mom angry at their appreciation for being given gifts because gifts apparently were not an allowed thing in that household from what I could tell. Anyway, her mom comes over and her dad comes over and we're just chatting and her husband's there. We'll call him Nathan. Okay, that's not his name. Or Nate. Okay, we'll call him Nate. So Nate and her are sitting there chatting with her mom and dad, and I don't know these people at all. So I'm feeling like the third wheel, you know. And they decide they're going to talk about church business, like what's going on in the church. Apparently somebody was dividing the church in half, taking the people and going and starting his own thing with some of the church furniture, by the way, to start their own church. Because obviously they weren't happy in the church of Charlie's father. So they're like, well, we're going to talk about church business. And I'm thinking, should I be here for this? This is like not my business. So her mother comes up to me and she turns around and looks at the kids. She goes, so and so, get to your rooms. So they get up and comply. There was no argument. There was no, do we have to? Nothing. They just got up and went without so much as blinking. She turns to me and says, sometimes I still think children should be seen and not heard. At that point, I knew, there is a very bad family dynamic going on here, possibly. And if anything goes wrong, these people are tight. And this lady would not be one to report to. Because if she thinks children should be seen and not heard, and I am seen as Charlie's spiritual daughter at this point, that is not a good thing. The other thing I forgot to tell you guys is that at some point, Charlie's mom came to me and said she wanted to be my spiritual mom. And I'm like, yeah, but Charlie already is. She's like, well, that's fine. You can have, two spiritual moms. Hi, Hannah. I'm like, okay. So I told Charlie, and she's like, what? No, my mom wouldn't do that. The last time my mom, took somebody under her wing like that, it was a big disaster. And she told me all about it and whatever. And like, well, that's what she said. She goes, okay, well, let me tell you something. You and her, what you got is separate from you and me. So just so we have that clear, is that understood? And I'm like, sure. She's like, I mean it. I don't want to know what you talk about. I don't want to have anything to do with that. That's your thing. And you and me is our thing. Okay, understood. Anyway, her biggest thing was she did not want someone coming between her and her mother. I found out later why that was, sort of. Because her sister had come between her and her mother, and her sister became her mother's favorite. Along comes stranger me, and the mother wants to take me under her wing. Do you see the little dynamic going on there? The little power posturing triangle? Yeah. Didn't know I was in the middle of it till I was in the middle of it, and it was too darn late. All right, anywho. So, they start talking about church business and how this one guy was so terrible and he divided their church and was taking their chairs, borrowing their chairs and not bringing them back, and calling all these other people away from Charlie's dad and this church group, whatever. And we get done with the meeting. They decide they're going to do whatever they're going to do. I don't remember. And her dad looks at me, or she says, oh, hey, Dad. she plays keyboard, meaning me, obviously. And he's like, oh, really? Can she play us something? She's like, that's up to her. I said, yeah, I'll get my keyboard. I'll play it. Because all I brought with me literally was a keyboard and a Bible and my clothes. That was it. Maybe the gifts for the kids. So he's like, that would be great. So I bring the keyboard in and he starts asking me to play hymns. Charlie did not have a good relationship with her father. He was an alcoholic for years, and she watched him probably abuse and neglect her mom, and then her mom had to go out to work and support the kids while the guy was drinking and preaching and whatever. So she did not have a good relationship with him, and she definitely was charismatic and not conservative, hated hymns. So when he asked me to play hymns, and I agreed to, I got the death glare. You know, this kind of thing. She didn't wear glasses, so I'll show you without glasses. Like that. Like, are you going to do it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure I can. And then I look over at her, and he's like, oh, what harm will it be, Charlie? Let her play the hymn. She's like, you already know what I think of that. And I'm like, yeah, she doesn't really like hymns. He's like, that's fine. Just play one. It's fine. She's still glaring at me like, don't you dare. I played the hymn. I figured he was her elder. He was the superior. I was going to listen to him. So I think I played I'll Fly Away or something. He's like, that was great. Play another one. So he kept making me play these hymns. And the atmosphere in that whole room just was like quenched. Just terribly quenched. She was angry. And if smoke could have come out her nostrils and her ears, you seen the cartoon characters where the smoke blows out their ears? Yeah. That was the feeling there. And I'm like, oh, whoa. I hope she's not mad at me later because I have a feeling I'm going to hear about it. So I continued to play hymns and whatever. And then she said, okay, now that we did all that, we're going to do some worship songs. She said, go ahead, girlie, lead us into the throne room. So basically I played worship songs. We were singing and worshiping and whatever. But Nate and her mom were sitting and having a chat session over on the side while her dad and me were singing. Charlie was not happy, needless to say. How dare she ask me to do something and her mother violate what she says. It became very clear to me very quickly that Charlie actually wore the pants in the family, not the matriarch of the family, although they kind of both did. But when it came to Charlie wanting her way, even the mother kowtowed to it. All right, weirdest thing I ever seen, like I said. I'd never experienced anything like this in my life. So yeah, so it got really bad for a while that night, and finally they went home. And I didn't hear anything. I think she hugged me good night, didn't say anything about anything, and I went to bed. I think the next night we kind of just lived a normal life with her kind of ignoring me for the most part. But we would talk once in a while about just superficial stuff. And I couldn't sleep, so she gave me a tramadol, which I should have never taken. And would I ever do that again in some strange person's house? Absolutely not. But I did, and it knocked me totally out. And I woke up in the morning feeling better. I think I had a headache that night because Charlie liked to smoke. And I'm highly allergic to smoke. And it was making me feel very sick and giving me headaches. So I wake up in the morning and her kids are there. And they come in the room. They're like, hey, how did you sleep? I slept perfect. I mean, that medicine helped. And they're like, how's your headache? I said, I think it's gone. They're like, well, that's good. They said, what do you think caused the problem? I said, well, you know, your mom likes to smoke. I'm really allergic to smoke. They're like, well, you should tell her. Oh, no. I'm good. It's fine. It's her house. She can do what she wants. They're like, no, it's fine. Just tell her. She's not going to be mad. I said, I'd rather not. Then don't you tell her either. They're, oh, no, we won't say anything. Yeah, right, kids. So they go to school. And I went off somewhere at some point. I don't remember where. And I come back to the house. And she begins the shunning process. Literally. Just not talking to me. Walking right past me as if I'm not there. Not saying anything to me. Silent treatment, complete silent treatment. She goes out onto the deck, which this was a frequent thing, as I would learn was going to be a very frequent occasion. She would go out on the deck and chain smoke. Like really angrily chain smoke. And I walked out the door and I said, Charlie, are you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. Why, girlie? 'Cause you haven't talked to me like all day. I don't really know what to say. Okay, well, I'm here to like bond with you because we're like supposed to be going on a mission trip together and you're not speaking to me. She's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Was there something you want to talk about? I'm like, well, kind of. She's like, what is it? I said, well, it's okay. I can wait till later. So she comes in later on and she says to me, I heard what you told my children. Huh? About my smoking. Girlie, why would you go to my kids about that and not come to me? I said, I don't know. I told them not to say anything because it's your house. I don't want to break your rules. I mean, I'm just a guest. This is your house. She's like, Girlie, you're going to be part of our ministry. You're one of our worship leaders. You are our worship leader for the ministry. You can always come to me. We're your family. It's like we've adopted you. You're part of us now, girlie. Don't ever feel like you can't talk to me. You just please don't. I'm like, okay. From now on, I'll let you know. She's like, and from now on, I'll just stay outside and smoke. It's not a problem. Okay. And then she says, but don't you ever go to my kids about me again. Got it? Yeah. Okay, so I go in the house. And I'm like going, oh God, please get me out of here. I don't know why I'm even here. I am so miserable. I'm so uncomfortable. Well, Nate woke up at some point, was on the deck with her. And I could hear them talking. And I could hear her saying, you've got to get her out of here. I can't deal with this. I don't know what you need to do, Nate, but just get her out. Meaning me. And I'm sitting here going, oh, this is great. I can't go to her mother about her. Her kids I clearly can't talk to. I'm trapped in this house, and now they're talking about getting rid of me and getting me out of here. So until I can find a way out, which, by the way, I had no way out of there either. Because remember, her parents drove me the rest of the way, so again, I came without a car. The reason I did that was because Charlie had promised me a car. That was one of the gifts she promised me. It was the car that belonged to a dead friend that she had kind of hospice cared for. Okay? So the only way out was when they give me this car so I can drive it home. All right, 6 hours away. All right, so I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm trapped in this house with these lunatic people that want complete control over me. This is like terrible. But I didn't want to say anything to ruffle any feathers because I already knew what side my bread was buttered on. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything, not going to do anything. I'm just going to kind of bide my time. I only have a couple weeks here, you know, that kind of thing. So next I was shown that her kids get candy. Was it candy that they got? I think it was some kind of candy in a basket. Like chocolates or something like that. Candy bars. She's like, oh, I leave these out here for my kids, like when they come home from school or whatever. They can have access to this candy. Oh, okay. She's like, if they want to give you some, that's fine, whatever, but it's kind of theirs. I'm like, all right, that's cool, whatever. So basically, I left the candy alone. I didn't touch it because I figured that's her kid's candy. I'm not getting into some kid's candy and getting blamed for that or something. Well, that became an issue later on, for sure, when she accused me of eating all the candy in the basket. Which was interesting since she had decided to put me on a diet and only eat what her husband ate, who was a bodybuilder, by the way, which just about killed me. Interesting, all the scenarios of starvation and fasting, as they call it, which is basically starvation in the sense that it was done to me. And also to Ruby's kids in the Ruby Jody case, because I told you I'd be comparing. Okay, anyway. Um, so I just kind of bided my time, and it was time to go to Bible study at some point. They still weren't really talking much to me. And they decided they weren't going to go to the Bible study because their parents were out of town. And, oh no, it was church actually. We didn't go to church. And I was kind of like bummed because I had wanted to see her church. I wanted to meet her friends, all these people she said that she ministered to. We didn't end up going. And I didn't say anything. So that night she's like, "Girlie, are you upset?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Yeah, you are." "About what?" She's like, "You wanted to go to church, and now you're upset about it because we couldn't go." I'm okay. I mean, they'll be next week or next Sunday. She's like, "No, you wanted to go tonight. I can tell." Well, yeah, I did, but I'm okay with it. She's like, "Well, there will be other services, you know. It's not a big deal." And she starts going off on me about the service. And I'm like, "Okay, all right." And I just kind of slithered back into it was her son's tiny little room in the trailer. That's where my keyboard and Bible and clothes were. I went back into that room and tried to stay the heck away from crazy lady. All right, anyway, she's like, "Girlie, you can come on out here. My mom's coming over." Okay. So I got out there, and her mother comes in. She told me I could use the computer, so I was sitting at the computer chatting, trying to get somebody's attention, letting them know that I am not in a good place and I need out. But it's hard to communicate when people stare over your shoulder. And her husband and her were watching to see what I was doing on their computer the whole time I was there. So I didn't really have much privacy even on that. And I get it. I mean, you don't know what somebody's going to do on your computer if you don't know them. So, okay. But that kind of limited my way out as well. I couldn't cry out for help if nobody, if I couldn't talk to anybody on the computer. So her mother comes over, and I've got my back turned to both of them. I said hi to her mom. I probably got up and gave her a hug or something like that. And I'm on the computer doing whatever, abiding my time, trying to feel comfortable because the computer was comfortable to me at that point, being that I was a social media addict. And her mom comes in, and they're just sitting and chit-chatting and whatever. She gets her mom some coffee. They chat, and then she says, "Well, I hope you girls get along and have a good time today and the rest of your week. It's good to meet you." I said, "Thanks. Nice to meet you too." She leaves. And Charlie seethes again. Okay, did I do something wrong? You don't know what you did? No. When my mother comes in that door, her coffee is ready for her. I don't know what kind of coffee she drinks. We all know what kind of coffee Mom drinks. And then she told me what it is. And I'm like, how was I supposed to know that? I just met your mother. She's like, "You just get up and you make her coffee." Okay, you're going to have to tell me how to do it. I don't even know how to use an automatic coffee maker. I can't believe nobody ever taught you how to make coffee. Okay, well, they didn't. So can you show me? Yeah, I'll show you. So she gets up and she shows me how to make it. Now, this is how Mom likes it. So next time Mom comes in, you have this ready before she even has to ask for it. Okay, I will do that. And you need to be over here, not at the computer. You told me I could use the computer. Not when Mom's here. When Mom's here, all eyes are on her. Got it. Okay. I'm learning all these broken rules after I break them because I don't know these people. I don't know how they run their house. And this was way stricter than I run my house, so I was totally bewildered, but whatever. Okay. So the next day, Charlie's sitting on the couch in the morning, and she says to me, "Girlie, I have a question." Okay. "Do you think I have a problem with showing affection?" I'm like, uh-oh. So I had remembered back at the cabin, the whole hugging thing with Karen and whatever, and she had warned me after that, if you come to see me, don't mention anything about affection or hugging or anything like that, because I'll just close up and I won't know what to do. If you want to have a good time, we can have a good time. Just don't say anything about it. I'm not saying I won't hug you, but just don't mention it. Okay. So here she is sitting on the couch months later, not even that long, a few months later, asking me if she has a problem with affection. I said, oh, I don't really want to talk about that. She said, no, it's okay, girlie. You can answer me. I asked you. I really still, no. She's like, no, you need to tell me because nobody will be honest with me and I know you never lie and you always tell the truth. So I need to know. Are you sure? I mean, you're not going to get upset at me or whatever? She's like, no, because I asked you, it's different. I need to know this so that I can, be a better person or whatever and work on my issues with the ghost. Okay, yes, I think you have an issue with affection. I think because of your past and the things that have happened to you, you don't like hugs, or at least you don't like warm hugs. You just like quickly hug, pat, and off I go. She's like, okay, thank you, girlie. Didn't make anything of it. That night, it's time to go to bed. Now, up until this point, we hugged each other goodnight, and I went off to bed. Just, like friends. She walks up to me, she goes, good night. I said, good night, and I go to hug her, and she's like, girl, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do that again. I'm not sure, but I don't think I'll ever be able to hug you again. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to be hugging the right way, or if I'm hugging too long, or I'm not hugging long enough, or hugging tight enough, or I just can't. I can't. So, good night. Okay, good night. I went to bed, very bewildered and very confused and very lonely. Remember, I came from a huggy family, and even in my marriage, we were pretty huggy. So I didn't know what to think of this. This is supposed to be my best friend who was hugging me up until this point, and now she can't barely touch me and doesn't know why she can't give me a hug goodnight. All right, whatever. It's a hug. I'm not going to make a big deal of it. Whatever. Next day, her mom comes again. You better believe I had the coffee ready. Probably not the way she liked it, but as good as I knew how to do it. So we're sitting there and we're watching this T.D. Jakes thing about a girl that was abused in a certain way that you can use your mind and figure that out. And Charlie was getting visibly agitated and told us to turn the TV onto a different channel or off. I think we turned it off or something. Her mom was upset. She's like, well, I was watching that, Charlie. She's like, I know, but it makes me uneasy or whatever. She's like, oh, okay. So we turned it off. She goes, Mom, can I ask you a question? Now, I'm sitting there, mind you, right in front of them. I'm sitting there. She says, Mom, do you think I have an issue with affection? I wanted to crawl under the floorboards. I'm like, is she seriously triangulating me right now? Is she doing this to me right now? In front of her mother, she's going to do this. Oh, yes, she is. She goes, well, yeah, Charlie, I think you do have a little bit of an issue with affection. She goes, why do you ask? She said, oh, because Dee here, which I wasn't Dee then, Dee here said that she thinks I do because of my past or whatever. And they went into this big story about some girl that stayed with them for a while, and I don't even remember the whole story, but by the time her mother was getting ready to leave, her mother turns to me and says, come here, honey, I'll give you a hug. It's okay. Again, wanted to crawl under the floorboards. I'm like, what the is going on here with these women? Why are they doing this? Why are they making me uncomfortable like this? So I got up and I gave her a hug and she left. Charlie took her cigarettes and went out on the deck to chain smoke some more. So I go out there and I'm like, Charlie, are you okay? Yeah, girlie, why? Couldn't be better. I didn't mean to cause any problems with your mom. I didn't ask her to hug me. She goes, I know what you were doing. And I want you to hear me loud and clear. Nobody will come between me and my mother. Okay, I wasn't trying to come between you and your mother at all. She's like, you just tried to make her feel like she had to hug you. So she did. I'm like, no, not at all, but okay. So I went back in the house, gave up on that issue, hoped it would blow over. Um, one thing that that lady I told you, Stephanie, whatever her name is, the one that does the true crime thing. One of the things she said that narcissists use is something called circular logic, and it involves building a bait situation where they bait you to cause conflict and get an emotional response out of you to use against you later. Charlie did this on a regular basis to me, very regular basis, um, making me feel like I was a bad person, like I was provoking all this stuff that was happening and that I wasn't catching on fast enough to what I was supposed to be doing and I wasn't fitting in and all that stuff. I never felt like I could like I could arrive or arise to the occasion with her enough that she would be pleased with me. It was always this naughty little girl type thing. It was very sick and very upsetting. Anyway, another thing that Stephanie, the life coach, true crime person, said was there's something called JADE, JADE. It stands for justify, argue, defend, and explain. It's something the codependent feels they have to do with the narcissist. They have to justify, they have to argue their point, they have to protect themselves by defending themselves, and then explain what happened. All the while, the narcissist is getting a dopamine hit watching their victim wreathe in upsetment and pain and confusion, which is what I was doing. And it produces fear, confusion, guilt, and obligation. It produces a feeling of, it must be me. There's something wrong with me. What am I doing wrong? How can I fix this? And that's how I felt the whole time I was there. Anyway, there were so many different instances where I was mocked. I was compared to Miss Piggy at one point because there was a pizza commercial on with Miss Piggy. And she turns to her husband and says, Nate, doesn't she remind you of her? And they would just kind of sit there. He would be like, well, that's kind of like mean. She's like, she reminds me of her though. Doesn't she remind you of her? And she would mock me and compare me to Miss Piggy. And then another time we were out to eat with Nate and Charlie turns towards him and says, hey, guess what I can do? I can make Dee Dee squirm just by looking at her. I can make her uncomfortable. Watch this. And she was turned to me and went, like that condescending look. And I just was like shaking. She's like, see what I mean? Isn't that funny? And he didn't really say anything. He was not all that nice either, let me tell you. I'll tell you the trunk story in a minute about him. No, he didn't put me in a trunk. So don't go there. Not one of those kind of weird stories, thank God. I'm just glad God had his hand on me and all this craziness. So there were other crazy things that happened, like sending her kids out to go on a walk with me. And her kids were quite a bit younger than I was. Oh, yes, in the name of, yes, religion, Christianity, whatever you want to call it. She sends her kids out to walk with me, and I was without my Synthroid medicine for my thyroid because I had left it at home. I had forgotten it on the trip. Didn't know if I could get it anywhere or not. So my thyroid was not doing what it needed to be doing, and I was very fatigued and tired within a few days. It takes about 3 days, and then I start shutting down. Even now, I need the Synthroid to survive and function. It's very scary when I run out of my medicine. It's not a fun experience. So I was without my medicine. She sends me on a walk to lose weight. Her kids come back ahead of me, and they're like, well, where's Dee Dee? And they're like, well, she couldn't keep up. She's coming, but she's a little slower, That's fine. No big deal, Mom. Don't make a big deal of it. So I come back and I get the ridicule of a lifetime and mockery. Can't believe you couldn't keep up. They're kids. What is wrong with you, Dee Dee? Why couldn't you keep up with them? Oh my gosh, you are out of shape. So it was just like insult upon injury, whatever. And I remember just thinking, man, these people are just really brutal and cruel. I don't really even know what to think here. Anytime that Charlie got upset, she would whine to her husband in this little girl voice and, like, I mean, baby talk. Like, can you take me to Krispy Kremes? Oh, God, I just weird garbage. And I want some camis. I want some cami jammies. He would buy her camouflage pajamas, Krispy Kreme donuts. They knew the guy that ran the amusement park locally. So after hours, once it closed down, if Charlie wanted something, even though they were closed, they would literally reopen to get her food. This woman had total control everywhere. So, yeah, and they brought me back a smoked turkey leg at some point that Charlie loved these smoked turkey legs. She swore by them. Oh, they're delicious. You got to try one when you come out to see me. I tried it and hated it. It tasted like ham. And I took one bite of it and I was like, she's like, don't you love it? No, I really don't care for it. Thanks. Oh, Lord. She didn't say anything else to me. She went, Then we got home and we were in the bathroom. She was helping me make my hair fluffed on top of my head because apparently my hairstyle wasn't right either. I had to look like one of those, preachers from TBN in order to be proper enough to be around her family or her church. So she's fixing my hair and she goes, Nate's never going to buy you another thing. Okay. He bought you that smoked turkey leg and you were ungrateful. I said, I wasn't ungrateful. I appreciate it. I just didn't care for it. She's like, there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong with those turkey legs. It's you. It's you, girlie. You just don't like and appreciate what people do for you. So he's never going to buy you anything. And you don't understand. He doesn't buy people things easily. So you just ruined that for yourself. I'm like, I'm sorry. What's I going to say? I didn't like your darn smoked turkey leg. I don't like smoked stuff to this day. I still can't stand smoked turkey. Ugh. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's made with liquid smoke. That's why it tastes smoky. Because I did make something one day that I put the liquid smoke on and I liked it. But not turkey. Ugh. No. All right, anyway. So she got all upset over that. Had a big hissy about that. And she did the whole thing about my hair where she told me how to fix it. She poofed it up and hairsprayed it and whatever. I never wore my hair like that. I had lots more hair back then, by the way. It was like long and bushy and whatever. So she poofed it up on top of my head, and I could never get it to look like that. And she would just go back and forth with this. You don't have to fix your hair if you don't want. I just did that to help you. You don't have to do that. Wear your hair how you want it. And then I would wear my hair how I wanted it the next morning. She'd say, why didn't you fix your hair? Because you said I didn't have to. Yeah, but I can't believe you don't want to. Well, I don't care how my hair looks. It looks fine. She's like, okay. And then she'd wander off. And then Nate would come in. And, why didn't you fix your hair? Because she said I didn't need to. And that it was fine. He's like, yeah, but Charlie spends all morning on her hair. Like hours and hours. And I just don't understand why you wouldn't do that. Why you wouldn't want to do that. Okay, I'll go fix my hair. So I go fix it. I come out the next morning after fixing it. That's not how Charlie does it. Nate told me that. That's not how Charlie does it. Let her tell you how to do it. I'm like, I really don't want to bother her. No, it's fine. Let her show you how. Go ahead. Charlie, go show her again. She didn't understand the first time. She went and showed me again. Do you think you got it now, girlie? I think so. But remember, I wasn't with my thyroid medicine, so I wasn't retaining much in my brain. So I couldn't remember next time it was time to floof my hair out. So I didn't do it. Eventually I gave up. I didn't even try to fluff it up anymore. I just wore it the way I wore it and they could deal with it. Anyway, we eventually did get to her church. And the day we went to her church, I was asked to prepare something to talk on. I talked about codependency. Believe it or not, I did. Not narcissism. I didn't know what narcissism was. I hadn't heard that name back then. I talked about codependency. And apparently Charlie caught on that I might be referring to uncomfortable, toxic relationship with her. Hi, Phil. And I wasn't specifically mentioning any names. I wasn't even mentioning any circumstances that I can recall. But for whatever reason, Charlie felt it was directed at her, and she was seething again. Anyway, in the meantime, she comes up to the altar and she asks her dad, and her husband asks him too, we would like to be released from ministry. Now, they picked the time I come to visit to do this? Yes, they did. So her father is like caught off guard. He's like, well, okay. They're like, well, God is just leading us on a different journey, and our vision is not the same as your vision. Therefore, there would be two different visions, and it's just not going to work for us to stay. So we won't be back with your blessing. The father blessed them to leave. So I also sang on the worship team with her that time, by the way. She had me come up and sing next to her and Nate. That was interesting. Anyway, so after I did my message on codependency, some people started coming up to me and wanting to connect with me. Like, hey, do you have any social media? Can we get in touch with you after you go home? We'd like to stay in touch. We're dealing with some stuff. We want to run it by you. Yeah, sure. And the one lady that Charlie did not like, that she had told me about, came up to me and said, I really enjoyed your message. I just wanted to tell you. And I'm like, oh, well, praise God. It wasn't me. It's all him, you know. He's working through me. He's speaking through me. She's like, well, I was really blessed by that. And it really helped me a lot to understand some things. And I'd like to stay in touch with you. So she tries to give me her name, number, whatever. I don't remember if I actually wrote it down or what happened at that point. It's kind of a blur. Anyway, Charlie and Nate decided we were going out to eat somewhere. I think they made reservations somewhere. Like I said, they had money. These were not poor people. Like $1 million money type stuff. Why they lived in a trailer, I don't know. Don't ask me. I think it was all a big image facade type thing. Maybe they had some mansion somewhere else. I don't know. I can only tell you my experience from my end. So we leave. We're leaving the church and we're walking to the elevator, and Nate says something like, why did you do that? I said, why did I do what? Why did you talk to that lady? Why did you befriend her? You know we don't like her. I said, I'm sorry. She seemed like a nice lady. She just said she enjoyed my message. He's like, well, we don't talk to the people we don't like. Are you not ministers and Christians? What do you mean? Well, they come every week when we have the food pantry and they just eat and they leave. Like they have like a food pantry dinner thing or something. They're only at the church for the dinner. They're not here really committed. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe they'll get committed if you love on them a little bit. Well, we don't associate with them. It seems like you're trying to cause problems in our ministry. I'm watching you. I'll be watching you the whole time you're here. Okie dokie. So we get to the restaurant. And I believe it was some sort of formal dinner, like a messianic wedding type thing. I may be mixing two things up, but I'm not sure if I am. Anyway, we get there and there's no seats available for us right now, right at that point. Charlie starts throwing a fit. They knew we were coming. Why do they not have our places ready? They know exactly what we need. They know exactly where we sit. Very entitled. Very entitled. And I'm like, it's fine, Charlie. I can wait. I'm not in a hurry. No, girl, you don't get it. We come here all the time. We always order the same thing. We sit in the same place. They should have been ready. Okie dokie. Okay, well, I'm good. I'll just, be quiet and see what happens. We stood there for quite a while. Finally, they seat us, and she's still seething and raging and whatever. And I don't get it. Well, they have this beautiful messianic wedding dance thing, and it was very, very beautiful. I don't know if it was a reenactment or an actual wedding. I think it was an actual wedding. It was gorgeous. They had this guy that was like a flag dancer, like a banner dancer, and oh my gosh, talent. He was flipping with that flag and spinning, and I never saw anything like it. I was impressed. I was impressed with the food. I felt very humbled being among, rather wealthy people that were at this thing. No, that was not good enough for Charlie. All the way home, complain, complain, complain. That food was terrible, and they should have had everything ready. And that wedding was stupid. And that was a big waste of time. That was terrible. I'm just going on and on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is never happy. Well, what did you think of it, Dee Dee? I thought it was beautiful. I thought the wedding thing was so neat. I'd never seen a messianic wedding like that. And she says, you would say that. You would like it. Okay, I guess it's a crime to like something apparently now too. Ay, ay, ay. Anyway, the one thing I will say that Stephanie, why can I not remember her name? If anybody remembers Stephanie's name, she's the true crime reporter person. Harlow, is it? Stephanie Harlow, I believe. Yeah. She talked about moving the goalpost. That was what happened the entire time I was there at this house with these people. The goalpost constantly got moved. Just when I thought I was doing good and things were calm, bam, you didn't do this, or you did this wrong, or how could you do this or that, or it was Harlow. Thank you, Harlow. Yeah. So it was just basically constant jumping through hoops, trying to be good enough, trying not to offend, trying not to step on any toes, being accused of things I didn't do, like eating all the candy in the candy dish, when they had already put me on a diet and said, you're going to eat exactly what Nate eats and nothing else, because we're going to help you lose this weight. Because I couldn't keep up with her kids, obviously. I'm trying to think if I left anything out, because that was a nightmare enough. Maybe the stuff where she was seeing visions of a big, gigantic bird watching her. Because since I came to the house, oh, Nate, ever since she got here, there's been this bird watching me. I can't walk through my trailer because this thing is just watching me walk back and forth. And it came with her. Meaning I brought this gigantic demonic bird to her house, apparently. Sure. Anyway, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to say about that, you know. And then she had these African artifacts all over her house, and they were all, in her mind, linked to something in the Bible. I don't remember all of what they were. I mean, they made logical sense of how she would link them to the Bible, but they didn't make biblical sense how she linked them to the Bible. Anyway, there was just a lot of really witchcrafty African voodoo, hoodoo type stuff in her house that she claimed, you know, had spirits and power in it. So that's why she kept it there and didn't get rid of it. Alrighty then. At one point, she had a teenage friend that had died. And as I told you, she changed personalities quite a bit. So she went from the bebopping, teeny bopper person to the strict disciplinarian mom type figure to a mourner. And she went in her bedroom. She didn't cry. She didn't show any emotion that the girl died whatsoever. She was distraught. She was like, oh, that's terrible, you know, that this happened. She went in her bedroom. She came out dressed in black because she had to go to the wake. She's like, I hate these things. I said, well, it's just, you know, to show honor to the family. She goes, well, we did that while she was alive. I don't see any reason to go and honor anybody. She's dead. She's not there. Okay, I'll give you that. She's like, I don't get it. I don't know why I have to do this. And then I have to go to all these people that are mourning and crying all over me saying, oh, we miss her. She was such a good person. She's like, I don't know these people. And I'm expected to go and greet them and be happy. What if I don't like them? What if they're not good people? I had never heard anything like that, but I guess. So I said, well, I feel bad for you. I'm sorry you lost your young friend. How old was she? She was like a teenager. She was young. And I said, well, that's really sad. She goes, well, you know, stuff happens. I said, I feel like I should hug you, comfort you, something. She goes, well, you can if you want. It won't do anything for me, but if it helps you feel better, sure, go ahead. So I walked over to her and hugged her, and she's like hugging an ironing board. Stiff. No feeling, no emotion, no softening, just stiff and uncaring and cold. So she goes out the door, she goes to the wake and whatever. She comes back and it's as if nothing even happened. No talk of the girl, no talk of sadness. No, I'm going to miss her. Nothing. Nothing normal about mourning a dead, very, very close friend. I was very confused. Totally confused. There were other things that happened that I am kind of not really remembering very well. There was an incident with her stepdaughter. No, there was an incident with her daughter. Her daughter had a biological dad that Charlie had been with, like, I think she was married to him, and he was an abuser. He chained her to the refrigerator for trying to eat, which was very, very sad and devastating. So obviously she didn't have a good relationship with the guy. He was her ex for a reason, as they say. But her daughter would go and have, like, visitation with him. Well, one day her daughter wanted to go to a Halloween party. I was sitting there at the table when this phone call was going on. And she's like, you already know what I think of it. It's against God. It's demonic. It's this or that, blah, blah, blah. She's like, well, I really want to go, Mom. And I didn't hear her side of the conversation, but later on she reiterated it to me. And she's like, well, I told you how I feel about it. So she's like, I'll get back with you in a minute. So they hang up. Charlie turns to me and says, well, what do you think of that? I said, I'm not really sure what's going on. She goes, well, my daughter wants to go to a Halloween party with her father, my ex-husband, and his wife and their kids. And I told her what I think of it. She knows I'm against it. I said, okay, did you tell her that? She's like, no, I told her it's her choice. Okay. But she's going to go. I said, okay. She's like, I can't believe she would want to go. I said, you just told her it was her choice. She goes, that's not the point. I can't believe she would betray me and go to something when she knows how I feel about it. I'm like, you really can't win with this woman. This is so flipping crazy. It was Charlie's way or no way. That's just how it was. Hey, Sumi. So I was so confused and so bewildered by this family. If you call it a family, it was freak zone as far as I was concerned. I was told by Nate, her husband, that he would be watching me the entire trip, and that when he wasn't in the room, he would still be watching me. In the spirit realm, he would see me and watch me. I was like, woohoo, okay, alrighty then. He's like, so watch what you say and watch what you do and watch what you talk about, because anything that goes on here stays here. We are a ministry family and we are very protective. We keep our private things private. Okay. All right. So anyhow, things just got crazier and crazier as the days went on. I'm trying to make sure I say everything I wanted to say, and tell you everything I wanted to tell you. Did I leave anything out? I know she got real mad at her spiritual daughter at one point because she didn't want her controlling her life anymore. She got real mad about that. I remember that much. I remember her trying to pastor her children and indoctrinate them with her version of the Bible. And they didn't always have the scripture she wanted them to have, so she would get very scolding and keep telling them to dig deeper. And I was pretty much an onlooker for that. I wasn't asked my opinion, my view. I wasn't invited into the study. I very much was an outcast for the most time when I was there, for the most part. I was in the bedroom by myself, probably for about 6.5 of the 10.5 weeks I was there. Yeah, I was supposed to only be there 2 weeks, y'all. It ended up being 10.5 weeks. 6.5, which were a nightmare because I was shunned for 6.5 weeks, not spoken to. The only time she would speak to me is to take me out on a run with her, like if she had to go pick something quick up from the store. And it would pretty much be silent in the car for the most part the whole way there. I know the one time I had finally had it with the silent treatment, and she was in the kitchen, and I walked into her, or the laundry room, and I said, Charlie, it's Sunday, or no, it was Saturday, I guess. I just need to know, do you want to talk to me? Are we going to do anything together today? Or do you just want to be left alone? Because I can clearly tell you're uncomfortable with me. She's like, I think, yeah, that might be best if you just, give me space. Just, stay away. I didn't know what space she wanted. She never told me that the space ended. So I stayed in the room for 6.5 weeks. I came out, like I said, once in a while to go to the bathroom or to go somewhere with her that she bebopped me to. She didn't talk to me though. And then the one time, Nate and I and her, they went out to dinner. They're like, "You want to come with us for dinner?" Yeah, sure. I was anxious to get out of the room because I lived in that stupid room. So we're driving in the car, and he says, "So, how was your day today, girls?" And she's like, "Dee Dee didn't talk to me the whole entire day." I'm like, "You told me you wanted space. You wanted me to leave you alone." She goes, "Not all day." I said, "Well, how was I supposed to know that? You never came and talked to me. You walked by the room I don't know how many times and didn't talk to me at all. You talked to your kids around me like I wasn't even there." She didn't answer, of course. More silent treatment, basically. I don't think Nate even addressed it with her. They knew better that when Charlie was angry, you didn't cross her, you didn't say anything, because she'd go into little girl mode and then he'd probably have to spend money on her to make her happy again. Who knows? It was just crazy. He did tell me a story of how their love life went and how she only did that with him when she needed comfort. Not as a romantic thing, not as an I love you thing, just when she needed it for comfort. If she was sad, she used him even in her marriage. It was pathetic. It was very pathetic and sad, and something very wrong in her upstairs to be like that. I mean, granted, her dad was an alcoholic, her mom was an absentee mom, and a mom that was very, very perfectionistic. Very perfectionistic and very into deep, deep spiritual stuff. So let's talk about the Jodi situation because I learned some more information and I wanted to compare my situation to the Jodi situation. I'm talking about Jodi Hildebrandt. And if nobody knows what that is, go and look it up. It's a true crime thing that's very much under investigation and discussion at this point. Okay, so the starvation, let's talk about that. I was put on a very strict diet, if you will. Nate ate hardly anything. I think he had one sandwich all day and then maybe a piece of meat with some vegetables later. I was already overweight, and if you know anything about obese people, we need a certain amount of calories. Everybody does, but obese people, if you suddenly cut them off, that's torture. I felt like I was starving. My medicine wasn't there. I was lethargic. Yeah, I was suffering. I was very much suffering, and I think I pretty much dissociated a lot of the time towards the end just to survive it all. I clearly had complex post traumatic stress disorder when it was over. When I got home, I drove the car. They did give me the car that they promised me. They gave it to me, and they said they regretted even promising it to me, but they couldn't go back on a promise, so they gave it to me. I cried all the way home for 6.5 hours, straight through. So disillusioned, so upset. Um, my daughter came out to me. How was your trip? I fell into her arms, sobbing. It was terrible. I don't even know who I am anymore. I mean, I was a mess. I was a hot mess. I went to lots of therapy after this. Lots of therapy. Um, anyway, so they gave me the car. I already told you that. Oh, comparisons, yeah. Very, very lethargic, very just empty. I mean, when you don't eat for a long time and you're out in the sun and you're helping around the house and you're trying to keep a calm mind when all this stuff is going on and you don't know which end is up and you don't know when the shoe's going to drop, it's terrifying. It was very, very beyond stressful. It was inhumane. It was horrible. There's no other way to put it. She was very unappreciative a lot of times. I would fold her laundry and stuff, and I'd say, "Hey, I folded all your laundry." Then she'd thank me. She could see it. She just didn't say anything because she talked to me as little as possible. Remember, she wanted me out of there. She didn't feel comfortable with me because I was very confrontive of her. I didn't have a problem telling her, this doesn't seem right. I don't think you should talk to your daughter like that. Like, tell her it's her choice and then get upset when she makes her choice. I called her out on stuff. You guys know how I am. I didn't mince words back then either, and I still don't and won't. Anyhow, so yeah, there was the starvation thing for sure. That was an issue. Now, I didn't come close to being starved like the poor Frankie children were. Not at all. Bless those little souls, those poor kids. I wasn't there as long as the Frankie children were stuck in that hellhole house. But starvation is starvation, and it's horrible, and it's wrong, and it's evil. And I was clearly falling apart at the seams, so to speak. The bait and switch, I already told you about that, where I was told something would happen and then it didn't. Like the trip was going to be a great girly day, fun trip, and it ended up being a nightmare. The moving of the goalpost every time I thought I was going to, get close to her approval, I didn't. Just like the Jodi, Hildebrandt, Ruby, Frankie situation with those kids. They never were good enough. They had demons, according to them. They were never telling the truth enough. They never did things fast enough, well enough, and they were punished for it. Same. Same with me. Like I said, I'm not comparing myself saying, oh, I'm anything close to the horrors that those kids endured. Not at all. I'm just telling you the tactics that were used were very similar. The whole thing about Charlie being queen, her mother being queen, and everybody bows to her. Jodi Hildebrandt. Same thing. Ruby's husband had to bow to Jodi. Ruby bowed to Jodi as if she was the queen of heaven or something. Well, in Jodi's case, I guess the vision told her she was the queen of Satan, so, and that he was going to marry her. So, yeah. Tell me some of the other things from that case if you can remember them. I'm trying to remember. What else? Well, like, there was like rewards promised to the kids. Like, if you do this, then you'll have the favor of God. Like, okay, for instance, when the little boy was sweating hot from standing out in the hot sun, and his mother, I say that very loosely, very, very loosely, Ruby, pushed him into the pool and then tried to drown him, basically, and said, well, the devil's probably telling you that I'm trying to hurt you, but I'm not, am I, R? I'm doing this because I love you, right? And that's kind of what Charlie would say. That she was doing things because she cared about me and she loved me, and I was part of the ministry family. I was part of the family, and they would never hurt me. Oh, that reminds me, another thing she did. So, Dove, the one that I was friends with before I met Charlie, she had treated me terribly too, just like ending our friendship and whatever. And along came Charlie saying, I can't believe Dove treated you that way. She threw you out the door like a dog that had to scavenge for bones, not even throwing you any kind of bones at all. And I would at least give you meat if you were my dog, or some kind of stuff like that. I'd treat you better. And yeah, no, she didn't. She treated me way worse than Dove ever did. And it was horrible. And the camaraderie, or the cult-like atmosphere of the people in the family, where you could tell underlying they all had this connection with each other not to betray Dove, or not to betray Charlie, or the mother. They all knew, these were the people in charge. Even the father was manipulated by the women. So, yeah. So, anyway, I don't know. There was just so much. There was so much, so much. But like I said, I was trying for the comparisons. The isolation was another thing. I couldn't talk to anybody on the computer because Nate was watching and he kept telling me he was watching me. So if I tried to talk to any of my friends about anything, he'd say, "Who are you talking to right now? What's going on with them?" Like he would pry me for information. I wasn't allowed to have private conversations with anybody at my family or my friends at all because he would want to know. And because I was such a truth teller and I was afraid not to tell the truth because these people could read you, then I would tell him. And he'd be like, "That's fine. Just don't say anything about what's going on here. Remember what I told you. I'm watching you. I'm a watcher." So, yeah. Um, so kind of the same thing with the Ruby Jody thing. There was a threat always hanging over those kids' head. And there was a feeling of we can't get out. There's no way out. There was no way out for me unless I took that car, which, by the way, was not licensed and registered and fixed up for me to drive it till right before they gave it to me to drive home. So I was literally trapped. I had no way out. There was, I guess I could run, but run where? I didn't know my way around there. There were no houses for miles around. They weren't near anybody. So again, it was an isolated thing where you're out in the middle of nowhere. You know nobody. Yeah. Um, there was no physical abuse as far as like she didn't hit me, he didn't hit me. I didn't tell you the trunk incident, but I've told that one before in the past too, where I was needing to move stuff around in my trunk because a lady was giving me a bunch of ceramic dolls, which I no longer have. I have no idea whatever happened to them. I mean, tons of ceramic dolls. And they're like, "Well, we'll help you clean out the trunk so you can make room for them and bring them home with you." Well, she sent Nate out there, and he's like, "Well, let me show you how to do this." So he moves everything out of the trunk and then repacks it, and he's got it nice and snug so it fits in there. Okay, now I'm going to pull it all out and you do it. I froze. I was like, I start putting things back a little bit at a time. He's like, "No, no, no, don't put it there. That's not going to fit. Move this around. Turn it. Didn't anybody ever teach you how to pack a trunk?" "No, my husband always does it." "Well, you need to know how to do this." So he pulls it all out again. "Now pack it. Do it the right way." I think he did that like maybe 3 or 4 times. I couldn't figure it out because every time I tried to shut the trunk, there was something sticking out, and he would have a biggest fit. And he's like, "Charlie, come out here a minute." She came out. He's like, "She doesn't know how to pack a trunk. Can you believe it?" She's like, "Yeah, I can believe it. Just like she doesn't know how to do other things." So he finished packing the trunk, and I went in the house at that point, I think. Yeah, so it was just insults, constant insults. She got mad at me because I was grateful that she gave me some Dove chocolate to try. And she's like, "You'd like that even if it was like Nestle's or Hershey's. You don't care. You have no appreciation for the finer things of life. You don't know the difference." "No, I just appreciate it because you gave it to me." "Yeah, I could pick a dandelion and you think just because your Charlie gave it to you, it's something special, right?" "Yeah, pretty much. I'm very appreciative of anything anybody does to me." She just walked away. mm. Yeah, these people were a piece of work. Anyway, the whole thing about her having this spiritual knowledge that nobody could attain to, and everybody wanted to get close to her to figure out what it was that gave her this in with the ghost, as she called the Holy Spirit, that was always hanging over your head and looming nearby. That she had something you wanted and could not get. And no matter how you tried, no matter how she egged you on to keep trying, you never felt like you attained it and never would. Like she had this extra knowledge I would never have. So, a lot of similarities to a lot of people's stories, especially cult stories. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you my story again for whoever it might help. If you're in this situation with somebody, maybe you're married to them, dating them, a friend, a frenemy, an enemy, a cousin, somebody in your family, whatever, and you are feeling trapped and you can relate to any number or even one of these instances I told you about, please talk to a safe person and get help when you can. But do not, and I emphasize this with 50 zillion exclamation points into eternity, do not tell your abuser that you are leaving. Please do not do that. That would be very, very bad. Figure out a sneaky plan you can get out of there safely, whatever you do. Also, when I was leaving, let's tell you about the very last day. I'm not done yet. I was sitting there with Charlie. And I said, Charlie, you haven't talked to me in 6.5 weeks. Hardly at all. I know we're not going to Africa together to do a mission trip. You can't even stand me for an hour in your presence. You owe me at least this. Tell me why. Why did you mock me and compare me to Miss Piggy? Why did you accuse me of stealing candy bars? Why did you shun me for 6.5 weeks and not talk to me? While you talked and joked around with your kids right in front of me, you acted like I was invisible. Why? That's all I want to know is why. I don't hate you. I don't condemn you. I don't hold any angst against you. Please tell me why. She's like, oh, girl, please don't make me do that. What do you mean? Please don't make me tell you. Please, please. I don't want to tell you because Father will be mad at me. Father already is very mad at me, meaning Father. I'm like, okay, well, I don't think he'll be mad at you. What's done is done. You know, I'm going home. I just want to know why. She said to me, are you sure you won't be mad? You sure? Yeah. She goes, I know what you did to Dove. I know how you went online and told everybody about her and whatever. If you do that, I know me. I know myself. And I know what will happen if you do that. So she like changed her voice again into the sinister, angry person. She goes, I don't want to do that, but I know I will. I know it will be bad if you do that. So you got to tell me, promise me that, you know, you're not going to do to me what you did to Dove. You're not going to tell people whatever. Yeah, okay, sure. I knew I was going to run home and tell everybody I knew. Anyway, she probably knew that too. She's like, the reason why I did all that was because I don't like you. In fact, I can't stand you. Oh, okay. She's like, you don't appreciate the finer things in life. You're slow. You don't know what's going on around you. You don't know how to do your hair. You don't understand what it's like to be anything but poor. I just felt totally uncomfortable the whole time. We're clearly not compatible as anything. And we definitely could not go on a missions trip together. But I couldn't. I can't stand you. I don't want you around me. And I didn't want to hurt you. I'm like, okay, Charlie, thank you for sharing that with me. That's all I wanted from you, was just honesty. I appreciate you telling me that. She goes, no, now I feel awful. Now I feel bad. I said, oh, no, that's okay. I'm fine. I'm just going to, go home and I'll be fine. And I was very strong at that point because God had been telling me towards the end that I was sent there purposely to confront some things that nobody ever dared to confront in her life. Now, interestingly enough, he did use me as a catalyst in her life through that time. Because very soon after that, oh, you'll have to rewind, but I met her through another forum on internet, of course. Very soon after that, she divorced her husband, who apparently behind the scenes, oh, I'll tell you that answer in a minute. Behind the scenes, he had been harassing her about me. She said it was he who did not feel comfortable with me there. He did not like me. I didn't fit the image of their ministry, which, by the way, there wasn't really much of a ministry. It was something in his head that he had dreamed up. They had told me that they were hooked to TBN. to a guy named Perry Stone, who is a very, very famous prophet guy that's very accurate, very into the historical Bible type stuff, extremely intelligent man. And they were going to supposedly be part of his ministry. And even Nate at one point had me write a letter to the ministry on his behalf. And they turned down the letter and said, "We don't know you people. We don't want you to be part of our ministry. You don't fit in with what we're doing. Sorry. God bless you," type of thing. And oh, that was a narcissistic wound if ever there was one. Because I learned at that point there was no ministry. It was all a big facade in Nate's mind of something that he wanted to be. But they painted this picture like I was part of this huge thing, and I was going to be their worship leader, and I was going to go around to these meetings with her and preach and whatever. She told me in Africa she was going to just leave me on my own to fend for myself, and I was going to find wherever the Holy Ghost led me to minister. I said, "You're going to basically drive me or fly with me to a foreign country and leave me on my own." Yeah, girlie, that's what I do. That's how it would be. Okay. Good to know. Good to know I didn't go with you. You know. Yeah. So anyway, she divorced Nate. She remarried somebody that is pretty popular. I'm not going to mention names, but yeah, he's pretty popular. And he has 2 daughters, and she became a stepmom. But before that, now get this, hold on to your seats, everybody, and your hats, because it blew my mind when I found out about it. Charlie became a domestic abuse counselor. Yeah. She helped domestically abused women to find shelter and clothes, and she dressed up like a clown and performed, and she was very involved in this place. Very involved. That didn't last, so she eventually, I guess, met this guy. I don't know how, but yeah. She also came back into my life on yahoo.com. We had a nice chat. Nice chat. On her terms, of course. And mine, sort of. I asked her every question I had. Every question. I told her, I have a YouTube channel. Because you didn't want me talking about you on the other forum, so I started a channel. She goes, "Yeah, I know about it." She had told me at one point that I would never be far from her, that she would always be watching me. She would always be just like a breath away. Probably still watches me. I don't care. If you're watching, hi, Charlie. You told me I could tell the story, so I'm telling it. I'm glad you've changed, though. I hope to God you're not treating anybody around you like you treated me. I really hope you have found help, but I don't know. Because the way the Yahoo message thing went was, I told her, poured out my heart to her, told her everything that she did and how bad it hurt me, how devastated. And she basically said she felt awful about it, but what I didn't know was that Nate was behind the scenes spurring the whole thing on. He had done it to other people before. She just didn't know how to handle it, so she just got mean to please him. Now, how much of that is true, I don't know. Could have been kind of a Jodi Ruby thing all over again, with Nate being Jodi and Charlie being Ruby, if you look at it that way, and I was the child. Anyway, she had said that I should have never been treated that way. She just didn't know how to handle things with me. And some of it was her. She was uncomfortable, but not to the extent that Nate was, and how he was telling her to get rid of me, get me out of the house, that I would ruin the image of the ministry. So it was all that behind the scenes, apparently, allegedly, I guess I would say. And I asked if I could stay in touch with her, if we could kind of rekindle the friendship. There really was no definite answer. She was very aloof after we said everything we had to say, and then she blocked me on Yahoo to reject me some more. Yeah. The leopards don't always change their spots, and some of them never do, you know. That's all I can say. I've been wanting to tell this story again for a while, but I couldn't couldn't imagine remembering everything if I could even try to do that, but I think I pretty much covered every aspect of the situation possible. If you do have any questions for me, you can ask them now, or you can leave me comments down below if you watch this later or you're curious about anything. I'm happy to be an open book and tell you everything that happened. At one point, Charlie did, I was sitting on a couch and she was sitting across from me and she goes, I bet I could get you to leave your husband. That was when I was married to Roland, by the way. I'm like, no, you couldn't. She goes, yeah, I can. It doesn't take much. I can read you like a book. All I have to do is say a couple things to you, and you'll be gone. You'll be filing. She did that twice to me. Once was then, and once was when I was in the hot tub. She said the same thing. And I always wondered why she was trying to break up my marriage. But she was, clearly. She was unmarried and probably unhappy, and maybe she did the whole misery loves company thing. I don't know. Narcissistic people are very tactless. They say things that make you go, oh my gosh, did they seriously just say that to me? Or maybe I heard them wrong. If you find yourself doing that, you're probably in the throes of a narcissistic situation. Because, yeah, they say things that people with good common sense and decency would not utter out of their mouth, even if they thought it. And she often would say, I'm only saying what you're thinking. So that tells you right there. Narcissist. Yeah, so anyway, does anybody have any comments, questions for me about the whole thing? Because I'm very happy to answer them if you do. Anything I can do to help people not feel alone and not feel like, did this really just happen? Did they really just say that to me? Oh my gosh. Yes, they did. Yes, it did. No, you are not crazy. No, you did not imagine it. It really came out of their mouth toward you. And no, they probably don't care that it hurt you. In fact, they probably enjoy it. Like Stephanie Harlow said, it's a dopamine hit for a narcissist to watch you squirm with confusion, upsetment, anger, and pain. They love it. I'm very glad I got away. Though I think I drove them so crazy with all my confrontation and holding them to the very Bible word they claimed to believe that they just were glad to get rid of me by the time I left. Probably. Plus, I had an image to keep up, and I was clearly tarnishing that, so. No, don't worry about that. Mm-mm. No, there's no intentions of ever doing that. Nope. No, and then I met lovely you-know-who on here, who, the stuff you-know-who put me through on here, I would say was even worse than what I went through from Charlie. Way worse. Because you-know-who put me through it online and on camera and on the phone and through manipulations and turning people against me and bringing enemies against me into my life. And who knew about the story I just told you too. So very possibly some of that stuff was used in the process of the love bombing, discard, replacement stuff that she put me through. So, yeah. Oh, that's fine, Sue, and you're welcome to ask me whatever you want, for sure. Anytime. Yeah. But I don't know that Charlie went on to abuse anybody else. I don't think she did. I think she focused more on her new marriage and her stepkids. So I don't think she... And I do think a part of her felt some kind of regret over what she did to me. But I don't think she knew how to relate to me. I was very in your face. I wasn't mean about it, but when I saw things that didn't add up, I questioned it. Charlie, why is everybody so afraid of you? It seems like you have everybody like kowtowing to you. That seems kind of controlling. You know? Her kids grew up fine. Her biological kids. They grew up fine as far as I know. They had their own children, and I don't remember what her son does. I'm not sure. But, yeah. In spite of it. Kids grow in spite of us sometimes, in spite of the abuse. But yeah, watching the whole Ruby Jody thing was very, very not triggering, but it definitely brought back some memories, and I could relate to some of the emotional feelings those kids probably felt. Although I was not abused in any way, shape, or form close to what they were. Oh, the reason I went there in the first place, that's a really good question. Because she was my best friend from the internet. And I went there to meet her because we were going to go to Africa together as missionaries. That's why. We ran a ministry together online where I would sing and play my keyboard or my guitar, and she would preach and prophesy, pray over people. Till she preyed upon me. A lot of times she would tell me to have people come and pray with her, that she would pray over them, and then she'd turn and behind the scenes say, "Ooh, girl, I can't handle that." I'm like, "But you said you'd be there for them and they could come to you if they had a problem." She's like, "I know, but I shouldn't have said that because now I'm all nervous. I can't handle this." She's a minister. She's afraid of people, intimidated by people. The very people that she told to come to her and pray with her and have her help them, she resented them. Oh, I'm very glad I didn't go with her. Very glad. The people in Africa apparently were glad she didn't come back. They wanted to kill her at one point. So, yeah, and at one point she was calling out one of the guys for being unfaithful in his relationship to his wife, and he definitely wanted to kill her. Yeah, she caused trouble everywhere. Not just in the United States, even overseas, apparently. And at one point, she told her family she wasn't coming back. She was moving to Africa. That was where her family was and her home. And her husband called me up and cried to me about it. And I was like, "I'm so sorry. I don't want you guys to break up. You're like the best couple I know." Oh, he's fine. He's on a mission right now helping somebody build something. He's good. We're both doing pretty well. No complaints. Even the Michi's doing well. Look at her over there. She's sleeping on my puzzle. Check this puzzle out, y'all. If you can see it. I'll show you the box. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. It's 3 killer whales. It's only 500 pieces, but the pieces are not with sharp edges on them. They are wonky, rounded edges. Thank you. Hi, bud. There's Maverick. Mavy come to say hi? Mav, Mav? Mav, Mav? Hey. Come here, buddy. Let people see your cute face. Here you my Mav, Mav. I'm working on my weight still, sue me. I've got a long way to go, girl. A long way. We've been hanging out with friends, and then when we hang out, we eat, and it's nighttime, and it's not good. I cannot eat at night and still lose weight. It doesn't work for me. So I'm kind of cutting off, not the friends, but the eating part of things for myself so that I can lose the rest of the weight that I want to lose. Yeah. So still doing intermittent fasting. I ate at 4 o'clock p.m. last night, and I ate at 10 today in the morning. I'm still going. I'm still going. I haven't given up. Yeah, buddy. Anyway, my throat is sore, and I'm going to go and get something to drink and probably have some food, because I try to stop eating pretty early these days, and I'm already past the time I usually stop eating, but today I think I'm going to go a little later. So I will talk to you guys later. Like I said, if you have questions, anybody, not just you guys in here, but anybody, if you have questions, you want to know anything about my experience or how it relates to the Frankie case, just ask me. Happy to tell you. All right, guys. Have a great day. Thanks, Phil, for coming in if you did. Hi, Gladys. I'm heading out. I don't know what Z-Bugs is, but you can leave me a message if you want. See you later. Bye-bye.